I want to be the first to officially welcome you to the Students for Life Post-Roe Generation Gala. We will have food coming out in just a minute, but we wanted to get started with the program. I also wanted to formally welcome all those who are joining us from all across America on the live stream. Can we give a hand to everybody who's joining us from outside of Naples, Florida? My name is David Bereit. I'll be serving as the Master of Ceremonies for our program time together. I am so excited to be here, and I'm so excited that we get to celebrate the work of Students for Life of America and Students for Life Action. This organization exists to recruit, train, and mobilize the pro-life generation to abolish abortion. Who wants to see abortion abolished for once and for all? Since its founding, which you'll be hearing more about in a little bit, Students for Life has grown from a small organization to rapidly become a powerhouse pro-life advocacy organization and to become the voice of the pro-life generation. Today, it drives the narrative for the pro-life movement as an organization and has powerful reach and success that is recognized across the entire pro-life movement. Just a few numbers to tell you about this organization, Students for Life. The number of advocates trained since 2006, 163,519. Amazing. The number of online conversations that Students for Life had last year with people on the topics of abortion and life, 443,595. Students for Life serves 1,400 campuses across America, and of those that they interact with on campuses all across the nation, 16% of them change their minds and become pro-life because of their encounters with Students for Life. And just a few dollar numbers, in the last year, earned media of $165.2 million. Everybody wants to know what the post-Roe pro-life generation is doing. And in-kind volunteer service to women and families of $21 million. Unbelievable work that Students for Life is doing. And though you'll get a formal introduction of her a little bit later, we get to hear from the fearless leader of this organization to introduce our first speaker. Please join me in welcoming the president of Students for Life of America, Kristan Hawkins.
We have a far more important guest we need to introduce tonight. Tonight, I have the honor to introduce to you one of my heroes. And I don't use that word generously. One of my heroes is with us tonight. No matter his office as congressman or governor, then vice president Pence remained steadfast, courageous, unapologetic in his convictions. When asked by his wife why he decided to run for office, political office, for the very first time, he pulled out a Time magazine article to her showing her the humanity of the child in the womb and simply replied, "To end abortion." Vice President Mike Pence, as we all know from the Trump-Pence administration, assured that the Trump-Pence administration was the most pro-life presidential administration in the history of our country and saw 3 pro-life Supreme Court justices nominated and confirmed to the Supreme Court. I don't say this flippantly, but it is because of this man who's going to share with us a few words that Roe versus Wade was finally reversed and thrown into the ash heap of history. Mike Pence is a man I am truly honored to call my friend and fellow warrior in the pro-life generation. It's such an honor, sir. So may I introduce my good friend, Vice President Mike Pence.
Well, hello, Students for Life. I want to thank you all for joining us for the first ever Students for Life Post-Roe Gala. When David Bereit said that, I said, man, I just got to say that too. Dream will come true, hasn't it? For us to be in this moment, and it's a joy to be with all of you. Also, a special privilege to be sharing the podium tonight with a man who has been an unapologetic champion all over the internet, all over the airwaves. Seth Dillon, thank you for being out here. Thanks for your stand for life. And I must tell you, she had me on her podcast a little bit earlier tonight, and she introduced me as one of her heroes, and I said, well, that's two of us here, right? And that I can say I was for Kristan Hawkins before it was cool. First time I met her, I knew she was special. But to see the way Kristan Hawkins and her family have poured their lives, poured their faith, poured their resources with your support into launching a national movement that helped change America and will change America for life. Join me in thanking Kristan Hawkins for her extraordinary career and leadership of Students for Life. Kristan and I are friends, so she knows the introduction I prefer is a little bit shorter. I'm a Christian, a conservative, a Republican. I'm Mike Pence, and I'm pro-life. It really is a joy to be with all of you. You know, my life has changed a lot since the last time we were together. Karen and I moved home to Indiana. We bought 5 acres and a pond. I got a riding mower. John Deere, 54-inch deck, 0-turn radius, 25 horsepower. You know, one of the great things about no longer being vice president, Seth, is you get to drive your own car. One of the bad parts is you get to pay for your own gas. But you know, the greatest thing that's happened to Karen and me, maybe in our lives, is that in the last 2 years, we looked down in the faces of not 1, not 2, but 3 new granddaughters born to our son and daughter-in-law Simon. Karen and I actually figured out, finally, as I wrote in my book, which I'm contractually obligated to mention to you, we actually figured out that the reason we had kids was to have grandkids. Next week we're going to be, my son, a captain in the Marine Corps. He's stationed in Yuma, Arizona, and we're going to be out near the base as little Avery turns 2 on Tuesday. And my son, being a fighter pilot, he has a good description for Avery. He says, all thrust, no vector. But I stand before you today with a heart filled with joy. Not just about what's happened in our family, what's happened in America, thanks to all of you. After nearly 50 years of lost lives and broken hearts, 50 years of praying, fasting, and hoping, thanks to a Supreme Court majority that I was honored to be a small part of seeing appointed, America has been given a new beginning for the right to life. So people have thanked me since I got here tonight. They said, but you know, when Kristan Hawkins calls, she has me at hello. So where can I be and when can I be there? Because I have the opportunity to say thank you. On behalf of Students for Life, of the team here, for your generosity, your support tonight, but your ongoing support through so many years brought us to that point. It should fill your heart with immense joy and pride to know that from last summer forward, as the sun goes down somewhere in America, there's a young mother tucking a little one into bed, kissing him on the forehead, saying a prayer, and thanking God from the bottom of her heart because you stood for life. Like all of you, I'm not new to the cause of life. I actually became an advocate for life just 5 years after that fateful Supreme Court decision in 1973. It was then on a hillside on the campus of it's been much in the news lately, called Asbury University. But it was as though I heard the gospel for the very first time, and I stood up and I walked down and I accepted Jesus Christ as my personal Lord and Savior. When I made that decision, everything in my life changed. I opened the book and I read words like, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. See, I set before you today life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life, so that you and your children may live." I knew then that his cause must become my cause. And ever since that day, I have dedicated myself, as all of you have, to the cause of the sanctity of life. I always believed that we would see Roe versus Wade sent to the ash heap of history, where it belongs. But I'll be honest with you, I didn't know if I'd live to see that day. I knew, like the famous Dred Scott decision before it, that it was morally, historically, and legally fraud, and it would ultimately collapse under its own weight someday in a nation that cherishes the unalienable right to life. But because of all of you, we were able to elect in the year 2016 the most pro-life administration in American history that appointed 3 of the justices of Gala since beginning to life. Throughout my career, I've sought to advance the cause of life. When I was a congressman, when I met some of you in this room, like the great Rebecca Hagan, whenever we heard the right to life being debated on the floor of the House, we sprinted to that blue and gold carpet. When I was governor of Indiana, we advanced the right to life and adoption reform. I had the privilege of being the first vice president in history to ever address the March for Life in Washington, D.C. in person. I write about how that happened, Seth. It's actually, I don't know if I mentioned I wrote a book. It was just the first few weeks of the administration, marking that dark anniversary in January every year. I was standing next to the Resolute desk. The new president was going over his schedule for the day, and his chief of staff said to him, you're not going to be able tomorrow to call in to the right to life as some Republican presidents have done because the Prime Minister of England will be here. And he said, "Oh, okay." And at that I said a little bit hesitantly, I said, "Well, they invited me too." And the president looked up at me from his desk and said, "They invited you to speak?" And I said, well, yeah. And he said, "Is that something you'd want to do?" And I said, "Well, my family and I have been to the March for Life many times. I've spoken in lots of, sure, yeah, no, I'd like to do it." And he said, "Well, then you've got to go." And I had the chance to drive that 18-car motorcade up behind that stage and walk out and declare that life is winning in America. And it was. Because of all of you. I take no credit for that moment. It was you and millions like you that carried our team along and elected not only a Republican and pro-life administration, but pro-life majorities in the House and the Senate. And I must tell you, as president of the Senate, I had no greater privilege than the day I got to cast the tie-breaking vote to allow states to defund Planned Parenthood. So we celebrate today our first ever Post-Roe Gala. But I think all of you know that we've not come to the end of this cause. We've simply come to the end of the beginning. It may take us as long to restore the sanctity of life to the center of American law as it took us to overturn that dreadful decision. But so we must be prepared to labor and work and pray with undaunting courage. Because as we speak, new battlefields are emerging every day in every state across this country. And we have work to do. And remember, we did not arrive at this moment by being timid. We got here through perseverance and passion and candor and hard work and faith. Like Kristan and the Students for Life team and its volunteers around this country show every day. We must have the courage of our convictions. In this rapidly changing post-Roe America, our job remains the same. To restore a culture of life, to restore the sanctity of life to the center of American law, and understand this is not merely about the cause of life. I believe if we save the babies, we will save America. So we have work to do. I'll give you a few thoughts as I prepare to yield the podium to my better and much more entertaining partner tonight. First and foremost, we should recognize that the cause of life is a moral cause, but it's also a national cause. And we must work, each and every one of us, to fight to elect men and women in the Congress and in state houses around the country that will end the scourge of abortion. Our laws should reflect that unborn babies are human beings owed the full protection and recognition of the law in the country. Resources, benefits, programs, and protections available to children and their families under the law should be extended to unborn children in America. As governor of Indiana, I was proud to sign the first law banning elective abortion based on a child's race, gender, or disability. It's time to end this injustice nationwide. We also need to end the dangerous practice as Students for Life is in the forefront of doing, the dangerous practice of abortion pill mills and mail-order abortion. You already heard from this podium tonight. Over half of all abortions are now performed by medication. The FDA has approved these drugs after ignoring potentially dangerous side effects. Americans don't want their pharmacies to become abortion facilities. The advocacy group I founded, Advancing American Freedom, filed a brief asking the federal court to overturn the FDA's approval of one of the most widely used abortion pills, and we'll stay in that fight, I promise you. Our postal system was not designed to be an engine of death for the unborn or their mothers. I want to commend the 20 Republican state attorneys general who have challenged the distribution of the abortion pill in their states, and I commend Walgreens for yielding to the rule of law. And David said it well, our work must be not just to make abortion illegal, but through compassion and generosity to make it unthinkable in America. We need to make it easier for Americans to choose life. Did you know that the average cost of an adoption in the United States of America today can be as much as $70,000? That's more than the average American worker makes in a year. And that's a moral and legal failure for our nation. You cannot be pro-life unless you are pro-adoption. We need to make adoption more available and more affordable for every family in America. And maybe most of all, at a time when we've seen unspeakable violence and threats against the compassionate work of pregnancy resource centers around the country, where staff and innumerable volunteers have literally been changing lives for decades. We must demand of the Biden administration's Justice Department that those who vandalize crisis pregnancy centers be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, whether it happens in the daytime or the nighttime. And let me leave you with a word of encouragement. Traveling across this country as your vice president, my opinion of the American people went up. Down in this region of Florida, there was just a terrible hurricane that tore through and destroyed homes, destroyed the landscape, and claimed lives. And literally, before the wind stopped blowing and beating against the house, before the houses fell with a great crash, total strangers were in their cars driving to South Florida with water and food and compassion and prayer. I saw it in the aftermath of natural disasters all across this country in my 4 years. I saw it when I was governor in Indiana. American people cherish life and are generous to a fault. And so I want to say to you with absolute confidence, this is a pro-life nation. And many more are with us than are with them. And I'm confident that with your resolve and with your commitment, we're going to continue to win for life in America. So I just want to simply challenge you. Stay in the fight. Only allow this historic victory in 2022 to steel your resolve to see this cause to its completion. Work every day to elect men and women who cherish the sanctity of life to every office in the land. Keep giving care and love to women facing crisis pregnancies and support the ministries that come alongside them. Keep standing with your neighbors and your friends and your schoolmates with a smile and without apology for the sanctity of life. And finally, I encourage you to pray. Through every great travail in our nation's history, it's been the faith of the American people that's seen us through. And so let's never fail to avail ourselves of that wellspring of American strength. And in every form of prayer and petition, present your request to God. And know that the peace of God passes all understanding will guard your heart, your mind, and I believe will continue to touch hearts and minds across this nation by your witness of faith and devotion to life. And if you need inspiration, well, we can never get back those 62 million American lives whose voices were silenced before they came. As the late Henry Hyde said, whose voices were only heard in heaven. There's that new generation rising up. And if you ever grow weary in this cause,
find a little one, like Etta Rose, Elena Marie, or Avery Grace, and look them in the eye. And I promise you, you will not grow weary in doing well. And in due time, we will reap a harvest for life that will reform the foundations of this greatest nation on earth. And the best days for life and America are yet to come. Thank you all very much.
And God bless you. It's a great honor to be with you. Thank you for being generous to the Students for Life.
Let's hear it for Vice President Mike Pence. For those with us here in the room, in case you didn't know, Vice President Pence has written a book. And I think there are some copies still floating around here. And for those joining us on the live stream, Vice President Pence wrote a book you can get at your favorite online bookseller. I don't know if you've noticed at your table the little cards that have pictures of members of the Post-Roe generation. Every time I am around Students for Life, I am inspired. I see hope. I don't see the future of the pro-life movement. I see the pro-life movement. I see where God is working right now in these young leaders who provide a great path of hope for our future as America. Whenever you get a chance, look at the stories, read the stories, but now we get to actually hear from one of those members of the Post-Roe generation. She served as a spokesperson for Students for Life of America. She's also served as president of Tigers for Life at Clemson University. She began her work in the pro-life movement several years ago at her local pregnancy center, and since then has worked with numerous pro-life organizations at both the federal and the state level in marketing, media communication, and policy advocacy. She's currently a junior at Clemson. She majors in communication and political science, and she plans to work in, I know you'll be surprised, pro-life efforts and pro-family policy when she graduates in May of 2024. Please welcome a member of the Post-Roe generation, Alivia Grace Talley.
I was doing outreach on my college campus one fall afternoon when a young woman walked up to our pro-life group table and started yelling at us for our beliefs. I began a conversation with her that led her to saying, with tears in her eyes, "I was just at the abortion clinic last weekend." And I will never forget that moment. She had gone to a local facility with her cousin because she had no support from family, friends, or her boyfriend, and her cousin felt as if abortion was her only option. The student shared with me, if my cousin would have known there were people like you who truly cared, I think she would have made a different decision. I was able to connect with this young woman and provide post-abortive healing resources for her. And I watched firsthand both of their hearts and minds change on abortion when they saw the pro-life movement's heart. Good evening, my name is Alivia Grace Talley, and I'm a spokesperson for Students for Life of America. I'm currently studying communication and political science at Clemson University and graduating in May of 2024. When I started the first pro-life student organization on my campus, my freshman year of college, I had no idea what God had in store. What started out as just one person, just me, during my freshman year has grown into an official student organization at Clemson with over 70 students who do outreach and provide pregnancy resources to women. My journey with Students for Life of America began a few years ago when I attended the National Leaders Collective in Washington, D.C., and was part of the Standing With You Fellowship during my sophomore year. It was through this program that I was trained and equipped on how to make my campus more accommodating for pregnant and parenting students. As a Standing With You Fellow, I worked with the Title IX office at Clemson to help educate students on their pregnant and parenting rights. My project was to develop a webpage on Clemson's website that listed pregnant student rights and local resources. Within 1 week of this website being published to students, the Title IX office called me and shared that a student chose life for her baby because of the resources she found available on Clemson's website. And that is just one life. Yeah. That is one life that was initially saved because of the training that I received from Students for Life. But my journey didn't stop there. My journey with Students for Life has continued throughout this year through the Student Spokesperson Program. As a spokesperson, I have discovered my voice in the pro-life movement. I've had the opportunity to be featured on news stations, interviewed on Fox News and One American News Network, and just this past year, I spoke to thousands of students across my state, encouraging them to keep defending the dignity of human life because our work is not done yet. This past summer, on June 24th, I stood on the steps of the Supreme Court alongside Kristan Hawkins and celebrated as Roe v. Wade was thrown into the ash heap of history. But as soon as I got back to my college campus, I quickly saw that this fight is far from over. There is still much work to be done and many lives to save. I witnessed this firsthand when I hosted Kristan on my campus this past fall. I was not surprised when Tigers for Life started to face opposition and hate from pro-abortion students on my campus. The weeks leading up to hosting Kristan, I filed several reports of threats of violence with campus police. Students emailed me every day harassing me, giving me death threats because I was hosting a pro-life speaker. One afternoon while I was walking to class, a student told me she wanted to slam my face in the concrete because of the event that I was hosting. But despite the backlash and the opposition, we persevered in our mission to protect innocent children and vulnerable women from abortion. Over 400 people came to Clemson to hear Kristan speak. We recruited new members, and hearts and minds were changed on abortion. Word about the event's success quickly spread around campus, even to our administration, who have met with me and expressed their amazement by the lives we have changed and the impact we have made at Clemson University. We can never back down from working to accomplish our goal of loving all life, born and preborn. Students for Life has equipped me to fight for life despite pushback. It is only because of Students for Life that I have been able to change students' minds on abortion and educate and equip my campus on how to ensure no woman ever stands alone in a post-Roe America. Being part of Students for Life has shown me that each person has a seat at the pro-life table, because this fight takes each person. It takes me and it takes you, being willing to say yes and fight for the most vulnerable among us. If you're a student here tonight, I want to encourage you, keep defending the dignity of human life on your campus. You could be next. You could be the next leader that saves lives and changes the culture. If you're a supporter here tonight or watching on the live stream, I want to thank you. It is only because of your support that I have been able to change hearts and minds on abortion, support pregnant students, and provide help and healing to post-abortive women on my campus. You have given me the resources and the ability to speak up against the greatest injustice of our lifetime. Somewhere on another campus right now, there's a student who feels like I once did, that I didn't have a voice, that I didn't have what it took to fight back against abortion. That student needs you to believe in them. It is only through your support that we can inspire that student to change the culture on their campus. Thank you.
Thank you, Alivia Grace Talley. For those who are here with us in Naples, we're going to take a few minutes to get the food served. I know you're starving and you're excited to get your food. For those who are joining us on the live stream, we've got a short video to show you, and then we'll come back with our next keynote speaker. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
In the most historic year ever, the pro-life generation saw more wins than we could have ever imagined. Roe versus Wade was finally thrown into the ash heap of history. Students for Life of America launched some new groundbreaking initiatives, and Students for Life Action worked tirelessly in our states to create pro-life legislation that protects life from the moment of conception. Let's take a deeper look at how the pro-life generation changed culture for life and made waves in the political pro-life movement in 2022.
Men and women of Students for Life, I believe with all my heart that we will send Roe versus Wade to the ash heap of history, and the day will come when the right to life is the law of the land in every state in these United States, and this pro-life generation will lead us there. So let's get to work.
Friends, that is why we launched Standing With You at Students for Life, because we realized there is something that all of us can do. It's simply a message to her that she is not alone. We stand beside you, and a way to connect her easily and simply to the resources right in her community.
Thank you, Governor. Greatly appreciate your leadership in signing every bill that has come across your desk. You have been the most pro-life governor in our state history, so I greatly appreciate that. Thank you, Students for Life, for actually bringing this bill to me with this concept and leading the charge and helping with that.
Thank you to Students of Action, Oklahoma Students for Life, and everyone who supports protecting the unborn.
We are out on campus today hosting the No Woman Stands Alone in a Post-Roe America tour. We're having conversations with students, talking to them about the possible reversal of Roe v. Wade this year, and talking about what post-Roe America could potentially look like.
Hey Pro-Life Gen, we're here outside the Supreme Court today because last night, Politico published an article saying they've allegedly received a leaked copy of the draft opinion from the Supreme Court on the Dobbs v. Jackson case, pointing to Roe v. Wade being overturned.
And even though we don't know what the decision will be today, we showed up, mobilized students, and we are ready to empower our country for a post-Roe America.
The Constitution does not confer a right to abortion! Friends, we are gathered together and virtually all across America because tonight we are in midst of a crisis, and we, His church, are being called to lead and to finally end the atrocity of abortion in our communities.
Hey guys, hey Students for Life, my name is Mary Carmen, I'm your Indiana Regional Coordinator, and we are so excited we've reached halfway during the national tour. This is my last tour stop in Indiana. The title of the tour is Abortion is Not Right. Abortion is not a constitutional right, nor is it a moral right. And so we're educating campuses all over the country. Stay tuned, I'm going to explain exactly what the display does.
We are knocking for the Raphael Warnock versus Herschel Walker Senate race in Georgia.
And we were at Raphael Warnock's church, and we did a Black Preborn Lives Matter mural in front of the church.
We're letting them know that the fake pastor, Raphael Warnock, has a very extreme stance on the issue of abortion.
As you can see, the pro-life movement has had a monumental year, and the pro-life generation was there every step of the way.
We are the post-Roe generation, and we will abolish abortion. We are the post-Roe generation, and we will abolish abortion.
Are we ready to continue the program? If you are, let me hear you clap. Okay. I want to encourage you, please continue to enjoy your meal. For those joining on the live stream, I don't know if you have food, but if you do, please continue to enjoy your meal. It is time for us to hear our second keynote of the evening. Now, I don't know about you, but any event where you have Vice President Mike Pence, that's enough for an amazing event. But we have another amazing keynote speaker for you, and this guy is going to knock your socks off. He's an entrepreneur, he's a venture investor, he's a speaker, and he's a humorist, which means he's going to make us all smile and laugh. He serves as the CEO of the Babylon Bee. How many of you read the Babylon Bee or watch their videos? The Babylon Bee is a fast-growing news satire site that has overtaken The Onion in traffic and engagement. They take on the tone of a traditional news major media publication, and the Bee satirizes real-world events and public figures. He also sits on the board of Parler, a popular free speech alternative to Twitter and Facebook, and plays an active advisory and investor role in other companies, including Dwell, Evie Magazine, Thinker, and The Flip Side. He lives on the other side of the state of Florida. He's a graduate of Palm Beach Atlantic University, and he lives with his wife and 2 sons in Juno Beach, Florida. So before he comes up, we want you to watch a 2-minute video clip of him on the Joe Rogan Show. Watch this clip, and when it's done, he's going to come up and give a huge welcome to Seth Dillon after this video.
You don't have the right to tell my 14-year-old daughter she's preparing to raise this baby. You understand?
Look that woman in the eye who was the
listen, do you understand that? It's a 14-year-old child. If you have a 14-year-old child gets raped, you say that they have to carry that baby?
I don't think 2 wrongs make a right. I don't think murder is the answer to. I don't think murder fixes a rape.
What if we're talking about an abortion when the fetus, literally it's like 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 days, which just turned positive, just now, positive for pregnancy?
I just disagree.
What if it just happened today?
You might draw a line on men.
You can't. So you can't at the very moment.
I would lay it out like this. I would say, it is wrong to intentionally kill innocent human life. Abortion intentionally kills an innocent human life. Therefore, abortion is wrong. And I don't think any of the examples like, oh, well, how developed is it? Can it think? Is it conscious? Can it dream? Can it feel pain?
So for you, it's the moment of conception.
It's a human life, and a distinct human life, and I think it's wrong to end its life.
So you think that once the conception happens, there's some sort of a miraculous event, like at the very moment, like you can literally get to the point where the sperm cracks the egg. If you could scoop that egg out right there, would that be abortion?
Well, I mean, at some point you're going to have to say there's a magic moment that happened because you believe that we eventually become valuable humans, right? Well, listen, where's the moment where you think the magic happened? When we start talking about harmful misinformation and the types of things that are considered, that I say, or that we tweet, or the jokes that we make are considered harmful misinformation. Like, well, what about calling that baby a clump of cells? I think that's harmful misinformation. Because then you're encouraging people to kill it like it's nothing, and it's actually a human life. It's a developing human life. I think abortion is healthcare, the way that rape is love. If you want to use rape as an example, I think they're opposites, and it's like these are euphemisms that we use. You know, we use the word healthcare. We're talking about a procedure that ends an innocent human life. We're calling it healthcare. That's like calling rape lovemaking.
And this is why it's such a human issue, because I see what you're saying.
I see what you're saying, he said. I see what you're saying. Can you believe that? Joe Rogan asked me about abortion. And we got into a debate about that. I don't know how. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. Thank you for welcoming me here. It's a pleasure to be here. It was an honor to have Mike Pence, the Vice President, open for me tonight. That was kind of nice. And a shame he isn't here to hear that joke. It's a pleasure to be with you all. It's a pleasure to be in a room full of people who respect and value and defend life. I will say that. And by the way, I want to point out something important about this Rogan clip. There's a reason I wanted this included, so that you guys could see this in case some of you didn't see it when it actually happened. It's a really excellent example of what Students for Life exists for, the reason that it exists. And I'll explain why it illustrates that. I was not expecting to have a conversation about abortion on this show. You know, there's no planning. When you get invited to go on Joe Rogan's podcast, they don't tell you what you're going to talk about. You're not going over like a list of things, issues that you're going to hit, throwing things out there that you want to address. You just show up. You show up, he pours a little whiskey in a glass, you toast, and you talk. And that's it. So there was no expectation I would be talking about this topic. I figured we'd be talking about comedy, censorship, Twitter, Elon Musk, things of that nature. No. We started talking about it. We stayed on that topic for 30 minutes. And I wasn't expecting it, but I was prepared for it. I knew what I believed and why I believed it. And so when I got into a situation... So I got into a situation where I was being challenged to defend life on a platform with 12 million people in the audience, by the way. That is a massive platform. A little unnerving. You actually saw I squirmed in my seat there at one point. But to be in that situation, you never know where God is going to lead you. You never know where God is going to lead this next generation, what they're going to come up against. And they need to be prepared. They need to be equipped so that when they're challenged, even if it's just in a one-on-one conversation, or maybe they end up on Joe Rogan's podcast one day. You never know. I didn't see life leading me in that direction. But it's all about being equipped, being prepared to stand up in those moments and defend life and give a reason for why life should be valued and protected. And I'm often asked too, because it's a weird thing, you know, I run a comedy site. A lot of you said are familiar with the Babylon Bee? The world's most trusted, factually accurate news source. We've passed The Onion. We're still the second most popular satire site, though, just behind CNN. I'm asked all the time, because this topic, you know, it's a topic that seems outside of my wheelhouse, right? We make jokes on the internet. But I'm asked by people, why do I care about this topic? And my response to them is always the same. I say the same thing. And this is something that you should say, too, when people ask you, why do you care so much about this? I turn it on them. I say, why don't you care? Seriously, why don't you care? There's millions of innocent little human lives weighing in the balance, and you're asking me why I care? Are you serious? That's a serious question? You're going to look at me straight in the face and say, why do you care? Turn it on them every time. Make them defend their callousness and complacency in the face of unspeakable evil. I'm sure you've noticed, but there is an all-out war right now going on in our culture on reality, reason, life, truth. You may be aware of that. We've actually encountered that firsthand, just making jokes on the internet. We've faced opposition, I'll say, to put it mildly. The New York Times has called us a far-right misinformation site that sometimes traffics in misinformation under the guise of satire. It's a real quote from the New York Times. It is a compliment. I don't want the New York Times saying nice things about me. I'm doing something wrong, right? Brian Stelter called us hoax satire. We spent 8 months in Twitter jail. Do you know why we were in Twitter jail? We spent 8 months in Twitter jail because we made a joke we weren't supposed to make. There was a transgender health admiral in the Biden administration named Rachel Levine. You may be familiar with this person. USA Today named Rachel Levine Woman of the Year. For real. It's a real headline. Real headline. So we fired back in defense of women insanity with a headline that said, the Babylon Bee names Rachel Levine its pick for Man of the Year. Twitter did not like that. They did not appreciate that. They considered it hateful conduct. They considered it punching down. And in case you guys aren't familiar with what punching down is, you know, punching down is when you make jokes about things, people, groups, that you're not supposed to joke about. They're hands off. They're sacred cows. They are untouchable things that you shouldn't make fun of. But it's thought of in terms of up and down, right? Punching down is people who are beneath you. And this is the most insane thing I've ever heard of when you're talking about comedy. When you're writing jokes for people, you're trying to make them laugh. The first question, and the only question really that you should be asking yourself is Is it funny? Is the joke that I'm writing funny? No. Now, they want you to sit there and think to yourself, you know what? I shouldn't joke about those people. They're beneath me. How condescending is that? They're beneath me. I'd be punching down if I joked about them. They're marginalized and oppressed. First of all, this joke about Rachel Levine. Rachel Levine is a white, male, high-ranking government official. How marginalized and oppressed can you be in that position, right? Not exactly ostracized. What does marginalized mean? To be marginalized means to be forgotten, right? It means to be powerless, lacking privilege, to be on kind of the outskirts of society. Does that accurately describe someone like Rachel Levine, who's being honored as Woman of the Year and plastered all over the cover of magazines and praised and given awards? I don't think so. It does match someone else, though. It's a description for someone else. What about the unborn? Aren't the unborn marginalized? We have rules now in our society that you can't joke about the marginalized, high-ranking white male government officials, but you can kill the marginalized, the unborn? It's a crazy place to be in, I think, when our priorities are that out of whack, where we're thinking about these people that have the power to cancel you, to destroy you, to silence you, if you so much as joke about them. We're thinking of them as marginalized and oppressed, and the voiceless, defenseless, innocent children in the womb. I have no regard for them whatsoever. It's very sad. But that's why this is important. This is why I answered the question, why do you care so much, with turning it around and saying, why don't you care? Because there's a lot at stake. There's a lot at stake here, and I think we have our priorities all out of whack. This issue with us being called misinformation and facing these attacks. I don't have a ton of time, but I want to show you a couple of examples. Do we have anyone manning the slides so I can throw up one of these examples? Will you put that first one up there? CNN purchases industrial-sized washing machine to spin the news before publication. You know, this was fact-checked and rated false. Snopes fact-checked this joke and rated it false, and we got threatened by Facebook. They said, look, Snopes is a third-party fact-checker of ours. If you continue publishing false information that they flagged, we're going to kick you off our platform. Can you believe that? For a CNN washing machine joke? This is the kind of misinformation that they deem harmful. Can you do the next one? What is the next one? I can't see the screen. Oh, CNN praising Taliban for responsibly wearing masks. It's covering their nose and mouth, right? This joke was believed and it went viral. People thought this was true. They thought it was real. Now, they accuse us of spreading misinformation like we're trying to dupe people on purpose. Whose fault is it that this joke is believable? Ours or CNN's? You kidding me? Do the next one real quick. I can't see these, I'm sorry. As this AOC goes on The Price is Right, yes, it's everything is screen. Fact-checked, false. Dangerous misinformation. What's the next one? You guys read it to me, I can't see it. Okay, National Review called this the stupidest fact check in the history of fact checks. USA Today fact checked this and cited 15 sources in the refutation of this joke. 15 sources. These are the things they're concerned about, though. This is what the powers that be at big tech are taking their time. They are paying. If you go to the USA Today fact check of this that cited 15 sources, at the bottom it says it was paid for by grants from Facebook. Facebook is paying these fact checkers to go and rate this stuff false, so they can then threaten us with deplatforming because we made jokes that they don't want us to make. Meanwhile, there's all kinds of real harmful misinformation floating around out there that they have no regard for whatsoever. They're not trying to stop it at all. And I got some examples for you. I want you to think about this. Tell me if you think we should be flagging this and fact-checking this as harmful misinformation. Harmful misinformation is telling a woman that abortion is a decision about her own body when another body and life is at stake. Isn't that harmful misinformation? Harmful misinformation is calling a baby a clump of cells or a parasite. Harmful misinformation is calling abortion, a procedure that intentionally ends an innocent human life, healthcare. Like I told Joe Rogan, I think abortion is healthcare the way rape is lovemaking. Harmful misinformation is telling a woman it's more empowering to kill her child than to raise him. Harmful misinformation is presenting abortion, not adoption, as the best answer to unwanted pregnancy. Harmful misinformation is telling women they're better off living with the guilt of killing their preborn children than coping with financial hardship. Harmful misinformation is framing abortion as self-defense. It's a baby, not a bomb. Harmful misinformation is the claim that we don't know when life begins. Harmful misinformation is the claim that saving sex for marriage is shameful or foolish. Harmful misinformation is describing a procedure that intentionally ends a life as safe. I could go on for a long time. There is a lot of harmful misinformation on this topic. Just imagine if we lived in a world where that kind of misinformation was being fact-checked instead of jokes about CNN purchasing washing machines to spin the news in before publishing it. Imagine if we had our priorities straight. But I think it's important, when we look at these things, this terminology that's being used, stuff like calling abortion healthcare, using the word healthcare, the euphemisms that are being used, they're being used for a reason. They're using this language deliberately to whitewash what they're talking about. You have to cut through these inaccurate terms. And why are they throwing those in your way? Well, it's an admission. It's something, when you whitewash something, when you cover it up with euphemistic language, you're implicitly acknowledging that it's wrong. And we have to call them out on that. You have to, in order to talk about abortion honestly, you have to use terms that actually accurately assess what you're discussing, what you're dealing with. The situation with Twitter and us getting kicked off Twitter, we spent 8 months in jail, in Twitter jail, I'll call it, for making that joke about Rachel Levine. 8 months. We refused to delete the joke. Twitter told us, delete the joke and you can have your account back. Delete the joke. But you must admit that you engaged in hateful conduct. Can you believe that? Admit you engaged in hateful conduct and we will restore your account. We refuse to do that. We refuse to do that. In all of these conversations, the conversation over life, the conversation over gender, simply speaking up with the truth is deemed misinformation or hateful conduct in today's age. But I'm telling you right now, the truth is not hate speech. The truth is not hate speech. We should be able to say it unapologetically, defend it fearlessly and boldly. And there may be consequences for that, by the way. You might get locked in Twitter jail. You might lose your Twitter account. But is that really that big of a deal? Elon Musk came to our rescue. A Washington Post reported that on his first day as CEO, he came in and said, "Bring back the Babylon Bee." That was the first thing he said when he came back into the Twitter office. And that was really cool. It was cool to be a part of that story. But the tremendous thing that was going on there is he was willing to sacrifice something. He was willing to lose money. And he was willing to lose his reputation in order to be able to say, look, we need to have free speech. We need to be able to debate these topics. Wokeness is evil. We have to be able to confront it. We can't have platforms that are controlling what we say and what we think. And so he's willing to give something up for that. And I would encourage all of you that when you are courageous, when you act boldly, when you refuse to do something like what we did, where we refused to delete the joke, people notice that. People notice that. People like Elon Musk take note of things like that. And wheels start turning, and you end up seeing results from your actions. But at the very least, if you refuse to censor yourself, you embolden other people. Courage is courageous. You could call it a good infection. And I think it's really important that we take off the mask of fear and spread it all over the place. So please, never be afraid to stand up and tell the truth, even if it costs you something. I don't think that the greatest accomplishments on Twitter are amassing a huge following or getting a blue check or going viral. It's getting banned for saying something true, honestly. That's the best accomplishment you can. I also think that it's important, one of the things that our mission is to ridicule bad ideas. It is to mock what deserves to be mocked. And I think we've lost sight of something very important in our culture today. We've gotten this idea in our heads that we have morally improved because we make fun of fewer things. You know that? This idea that we all need a safe space, that we shouldn't offend anybody, that we need to just lay off with the comedy. You know, if somebody makes a joke that's really offensive, we need to run up on stage and slap the comedian in the face now. That's how we're responding to jokes that we don't like. Where has that gotten us by taking bad ideas so seriously? The reason that these ideas are so sacred, the idea that, by the way, there can be a transgender 3-year-old, the idea that men can become women, that men can become pregnant, these insane ideas have become popular. They've become sacred because they haven't been sufficiently mocked. We have affirmed and accepted what should have been ridiculed and rejected. So that's our challenge, is to take that on with humor. And we do this in every area, and we do it in the arena of life as well. I want to leave you with a couple of closing remarks here on what I think we need to keep in mind, what we need to focus on. There is a war on reality, reason, truth, and life. I think it's fundamentally spiritual. I think you can feel that. It's fundamentally spiritual, not political. And there have been many casualties, but it's not over yet. The next generation can withstand the assault if they're well equipped, and if public policy that honors God's truth is advanced and vigorously defended. The responsibility for that, I think, lands squarely on each of us in this room. We must value clarity as much as the enemy loves confusion. We must be as determined to affirm the truth as they are to deny it. We must be as eager to protect our children as they are to corrupt them, and we must be as willing to defend life as they are to destroy it. Students for Life is equipping the Post-Roe generation to be the answer to the culture of death. And each of you are honoring God by supporting them and joining in this fight. I hope you know that and never forget it. Thank you.
Let's hear it for Seth Dillon. In introducing Seth, I told you were going to hear from the second keynote speaker and how amazing it was going to be, and it was. But what I didn't tell you is we were saving the best speaker until now. It's time to hear from our fearless leader. As president of Students for Life of America, she has spent more than 16 years building a national network of more than 1,400 student-led groups across all 50 states, layering campus activism with political engagement through Students for Life Action, which she also heads. With the Students for Life team, many of whom are here in this room or are joining us online on the live stream, she has launched many powerful initiatives to mobilize pro-life activists. Some of them are represented on the tables here at the back of the room. This school year, her team will have 1 million conversations with Gen Z, those being targeted by the abortion industry, and between 10 to 20% of those they reach will be converted to a pro-life position. Each year, she tirelessly crisscrosses our nation, speaking on college campuses and addressing pro-life audiences, and video clips of her speaking tours have been viewed tens of millions of times. She hosts the wildly popular Explicitly Pro-Life podcast. I love the name, and only she would have a podcast called Explicitly Pro-Life. And she regularly appears in all the major media outlets, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, Newsweek, NPR, every major television network, and the Babylon Bee. She gives the pro-life generation and all of us a powerful voice. And on a personal note, she is one of my heroes. She's a dear friend. There is no one in the pro-life movement who works more tirelessly to advocate for this cause. And that's why I was so tremendously blessed. On June 24th, 2022, the day the United States Supreme Court handed down the Dobbs decision, she had the honor of announcing on the Supreme Court steps the reversal of Roe versus Wade, and then she was spotlighted on the front page of the New York Times above the fold under the headline, Roe Overturned. She is one of the major reasons Roe has been overturned. Please join me in welcoming the president of Students for Life, Kristan Hawkins.
You know, first of all, David loves the podcast name because he named it. I don't know if he remembers that. You know, I normally begin presentations sharing a story of courage, of sacrifice, or hope that some person, some groups of people in our history displayed, resulting in transformational change. Engaging in some sort of campaign, refusing to yield, even when the victory for the other side was all but assured. But tonight I want to change it up a little bit and do something different, or maybe not so different, because I want to share with you the story of us, Students for Life and the pro-life generation. 17 years ago, I was given an incredible opportunity to launch Students for Life, knowing we had to go straight where the abortion industry was strongest, right where culture is being formed, where we know movements are recruited and made, college campuses. That's because I knew that the end of Roe, at that moment, our movement would need a trained army, one that was spread out in all 50 states, ready to lead the charge for whatever came next. So we could accomplish our goal of abolishing abortion, seeing it made illegal and unthinkable in our lifetime. But I remember not long after we launched, one of our first swanky fundraisers in Manhattan was at the Harvard Club. I'm pretty sure we'll never be invited back there again. We brought our defund Planned Parenthood pink van and parked it out front just so everyone knew where we were at. So that will never happen again. But after that event, it was beautiful. We honored a U.S. Senator. We had Eric Metaxas there. I was wearing a dress for the first time in forever. And a friend of mine actually pulled me aside, a mentor of mine, and said, you know, I love the program. The students are great. You guys have so much passion. But you know, you really should dial the rhetoric back, talking about when Roe versus Wade's going to be reversed, saying things like, we're going to abolish abortion. Because no one's going to actually take your organization seriously when you say these things that we all know aren't going to happen. I could have played it safe, and I think I might have called my good friend David Bereit to ask for his advice after that meeting. I could have listened to his advice, his very well-meaning advice. But instead, I stubbornly marched our army forward. That march led me all the way to the steps of the Supreme Court this June. It was an honor to be with so many of our student pro-life leaders like Alivia Grace, who wants to work in pro-life politics, i.e. she wants me to hire her, so Students for Life needs more funding because I have to hire her. I keep creating problems for myself like this. It was such an honor to be surrounded with amazing student leaders, courageous student leaders, to be the one to read those words. The Constitution does not confer a right to abortion. Roe and Casey are overruled. It was along the way on the battlefield of our nation's college and high school campuses, at our state capitals, that a newlywed, newly minted 21-year-old with absolutely no business experience had to learn how to grow a small, ragtag group of student volunteers into the pro-life generation. Today, Students for Life of America and Students for Life Action, along with our initiatives at the Dimitri Institute for Pro-Life Advancement, StandingWithYou.org, our campaign for abortion-free cities, we have nearly 100 full-time serving staff, the heroes of the generation, who've now been entrusted to steward more than $20 million of your hard-earned dollars every year. Because of the sacrifices that each of our team members have agreed to make in order to serve with us, whether it's lesser paying jobs, don't tell them they're worth so much more, weeks away from their families, exhausting days of community mobilizations, door knocking resulting in frostbite, dehydration, and sunburn, sometimes all at the same time. I had got a sunburn today out on the streets with our students. Enduring assaults and threats of violence on campuses, Because of them, there are now more than 1,400 active Students for Life groups in all 50 states. As David mentioned, more than 165,000 trained, more than 21 million in-kind volunteer service to our movement each year, more than $160 million of earned media attention. As you can tell, I kind of ensure our team measures a lot of our lead indicators at Students for Life. As we fight the battles I know we must win in order to accomplish our goal of abolishing abortion. I'm constantly measuring the number of our groups, the quality scores of all of the groups, how many mobilizations we can host, how quickly we can turn young people out and convince them not to go to class, instead go to Tallahassee with us on Tuesday instead. If you haven't signed up and you're a student, I expect you to meet me there. I'm constantly looking at those numbers. But I've found that seeing the lag indicators, those that tell us whether or not we're truly progressing towards our goal of transforming culture, creating an entire generation of pro-life leaders who will transform the country to reject the violence of abortion, those lag indicators sometimes can be difficult when measuring culture change. However, in recent months, they've been there, everywhere I look. On any given day, our regional coordinators and Students for Life groups on dozens of campuses are having conversations. As David mentioned, we'll have 1 million conversations in person and online this school year. Informed by the research from our Dimitri Institute, this, I just found out last night, we're changing the minds of 19% of young people we meet on college campuses, 20% online. And we're activating 43% of young people who we reach, those who are most targeted by the abortion industry. Activating them to join our army, to show them that they too can serve and have an important role in this mission, whether it's on their campus, or if it's in their community, or if it's at their state house. On campuses, our student leaders, they're working hard to challenge Planned Parenthood. At every Christian college in America, we ranked them. We wanted to find out where our Christian colleges stood with supporting Planned Parenthood. We found 1 in 8 had a relationship. 1 in 8. So we got to work, and within a year, we saw a third cut their tie with the abortion Goliath. With our Standing With You initiative, we helped more than 34 of these Christian schools move from an F ranking in our Dimitri Institute report to an A+ ranking, meaning now they not only have 0 ties with the abortion industry, but they're actively promoting the local pro-life pregnancy centers. We've seen more than 60 campuses in the past 3 years end their discriminatory policies that were leading women to think abortion was their only option. In communities, our Campaign for Abortion-Free Cities is working in 24 select towns. In fact, Naples is one of those select towns. Going door to door, computer to computer, educating women and neighbors about high-quality pregnancy centers like you all are so fortunate to have here in Naples at community pregnancy clinics. They didn't pay me for that at all. I'm just a proud supporter. We are so honored to be able to partner with pregnancy centers like CPCI to promote them out into the community. Because one thing we've learned in knocking doors in 24 neighborhoods surrounding abortion facilities in the past 2 years is 75% of our neighbors don't know what a pregnancy center is or that they even exist. This work has been transformative. We've seen more than 100 churches step up and join us in this fight. In Port Charlotte, where my camper's at, my family's at right now, we saw the abortion facility shut down. In Rochester, New York, one of the most liberal places in America, we saw Planned Parenthood blocked from building a brand new facility. We've seen 8 abortion facilities now go under state investigation after we focus. More than 3,000 women have been directly connected to the local pregnancy centers. We've reached 120,000 homes for only 70 cents a door knock. That's a bargain, by the way, if you're into grassroots politics. A bargain. And we're changing minds of young people in those cities. Now, Naples is a little harder because there's not as many younger people to target. But it's about 29 cents per young person conversion. 29 cents. Naples was killing me. I was like over $1. I had to go into Fort Myers. At our state houses, in our college, in Capitol Hill, our sister political organization, Students for Life Action, it's a little confusing, they're both the same name. We flipped the script at state houses, refusing to negotiate with ourselves. We started training and turning out young pro-life activists, more than 55%, who've never been involved in politics and quite frankly, don't ever want to be involved in politics, and said, this is a place you must serve. Now 83% of those kids, of the thousands we've trained, have said they will always stay involved in pro-life political activity. Those kids are going out and they're leaders at their state houses. They're often the only pro-life voices. They are testifying. We've testified more than 100 times in the past 3 years at state houses with lobby days. And the legislators are shocked to find out that this whole group of beautiful young women isn't with Planned Parenthood, they're with us. But we've refused to take the option from the kids' menu, to have pro-life legislators tell us what we were going to be happy with. We saw our Life at Conception Act passed and signed into law in Arkansas, in Oklahoma last year, preventing every single abortion, refusing to allow folks to put exceptions in those laws to say certain children should be able to be aborted because of the circumstances of their conception. And less than 48 hours ago, after 2 years of effort, literal frostbite we had last week, door knocking, 2 years of effort, primary elections, general elections in Wyoming of all places. The Wyoming legislature finally passed the nation's first ever Chemical Abortion Prevention Act. This is significant. I know you may think it's Wyoming, but Wyoming had very few abortion protections and is one of the most targeted states by the abortion industry because it's so rural for chemical abortion. You would not believe what we had to do to fight to make that possible. And you can't forget that there hasn't been a week since the Dobbs decision leak where the mainstream media has not attempted to shine a very bright spotlight on our mission and our success, hoping we'll become a target for the left to attack. One thing they don't know about me is that their attacks are the best compliments we can receive. By the way, if you're on Stars, check out the new pro-abortion documentary, Battleground. It's the best thing I've ever seen for marketing Students for Life. It's unbelievable the attention that they've tried to shine onto us to intimidate us into silence. But you see, even those who advocate for the violence of abortion recognize that while we may be relatively young, and we have certainly had our opportunities to fail forward, our gritty, innovative, fast-moving team at Students for Life is determined to win this war. While we're assuring that no student and no pregnant mother stands alone on college campus, we're engaging strategically, recruiting and activating an army on campuses and online who will drive our culture. Then we mobilize them in the community at the State House to attack the abortion industry, to promote the nonviolent healthcare alternatives, to elect and persuade our elected officials to actually take a stand. And then we transform them into a pro-life first voter, into an activist, into a leader for the rest of their lives. You've met them here tonight. For as we knew going into this post-Roe era, the battleground is larger than it's ever been before. And the life and death stakes are higher, much higher. As you can imagine, my role at Students for Life has shifted quite a bit since launching 17 years ago. I went from executive director, accountant, janitor, IT rep, and field director to just the president. I see myself in my role very much like a general. For I can't be on every battlefield constantly, and my staff doesn't want me to because I'm old, I'm 37, so I'm not even young enough. But I'm constantly moving from field to campus to campus. You've seen the videos of when I do go on campuses, constantly assessing the threats our organization and our movement will face. Because the crazy arguments that we hear on campuses, the things that happen to our student leaders, I know will be mainstream in just a matter of months. So as you can imagine, I can share quite a long list with you tonight of challenges. And I wrote it all out and I had to cut it back, so you're lucky. From the violence and discrimination that pregnancy centers are facing, that Students for Life groups are facing, the death threats that our Students for Life action team just received for daring to hold a community political workshop in Omaha, Nebraska, of all places. These are serious threats. I mean, now we have to be careful about scary Latin mass attendees. Could be white nationalists, according to our government. These are serious threats. We laugh and we joke about them. I know the Babylon Bee certainly had the field day with that one. But they're serious. They're serious so much now that I have to travel to college campuses with armed guards. I had to hire an entire legal team this year for the first time in our history at Students for Life because we had so many legal cases coming in, our pro bono attorneys couldn't even handle the caseload. But we have to refuse to retreat from the complacency that some in our movement now feel, thinking because Roe has fallen, we can now slow down or be silent. Just a few weeks ago, we were at the sold-out National Pro-Life Summit, the March for Life. I was meeting some incredible young people who I'll tell you about here in a second. But I hear these heartbreaking sentences of, I'm so glad I was here for the last March for Life. My bishop said, we don't have to come back anymore. Friends, the pro-life movement was made because for decades, bishops, priests, pastors, Catholic, non-Catholic Christian schools bus kids into Washington, D.C. And they may not have learned every way how to defend their pro-life beliefs, but they knew they were part of a movement larger than themselves. They knew this was a movement that was going places, that was winning, and they knew they needed to do something to end abortion. That those sacrifices created the pro-life generation. We have the honor to meet. We have the honor to train. We have the honor to mobilize and send out. We've got to refuse to become complacent. We also have to look at the shocking lack of concern those in power in Washington, D.C. right now have for the conscience rights of our business owners, of our medical personnel, and every American. We have to refuse to allow them to take our freedoms of speech and conscience. I can go on, as you can imagine. But I have two key marching orders I want to share with you tonight. Two things I've shared with our team just in the past few weeks. Two marching orders I've given our student leaders as the most significant challenges we face and where we must engage. First, we must stop the proliferation of dangerous chemical abortion pills that kill more than 500,000 children in America each year and is a leading cause of death of children. Harms mom, and we know harms our environment. And I'm not talking about Plan B, an over-the-counter high-dose birth control that's supposed to suppress ovulation and conception from occurring, but sometimes ends human life. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about RU486, the pharmaceutical cocktail whose sole job is to end the beating heart of a living human being in the womb by first starving them and then expelling them into the toilet, allowing chemically tainted blood, pregnancy tissue, and human remains to go into our waterways. We've been polluting our waterways for 22 years with the bodies of these children, harming the fertility of our aquatic and farm life. I was in Bonita Springs today at the farmer's market. That's where I got this nice little sunburn. Walking up to folks with tap water, asking them if they were thirsty and they'd like to drink some tap water that might have some chemically tainted pharmaceutical drugs inside of it. Surprisingly, nobody wanted my water. It was shocking. These pills can do serious damages to mothers. Serious damages, jeopardizing their own health, their own fertility. They have a 4 times higher complication rate than surgical abortion, a 10 times higher death rate than surgical abortions. And thanks to President Biden's weaponization of the FDA, these pills are now available via pharmacy at your local Walgreens, Rite Aid, or CVS, where anyone, Even sex predators can pick them up if they get a prescription, which is why we held 50 protests outside of neighborhood pharmacies today. Make no mistake, if the abortion advocate who plays our HHS secretary, Javier Becerra, has his way, every pharmacist in America will soon have to dispense these drugs. And then it will only be a matter of time before they will be over the counter and paid for taxpayer dollars, just like what they've done with Plan B. It only took them 4 years from you may dispense to you will put on your shelves. If this happens, it would dramatically, not only dramatically increase the number of children we lose every year to the violence of abortion, but it will normalize abortion into our culture in a way that Planned Parenthood has only ever dreamed. We can't let this happen. At Students for Life, we've been leading the charge on this for more than 6 years because we saw this happening in California with attorney generals' meetings. You heard Vice President Pence talk about 20 AGs writing a letter. Yeah, there's going to be more coming. We've had state laws introduced in West Virginia requiring that at the very minimum, if you're going to give out life-ending drugs, you should at least collect the human remains and properly dispense of these human remains. In Wyoming, we totally banned it. We've got federal efforts, citizen petitions, grassroots campaigns. Every single tour stop this spring that Andy, our Florida Regional Coordinator, and our team members will be doing is called This is Chemical Abortion, and it's changing minds at a pace we didn't even ever expect. And perhaps the most innovative strategy yet, which means that's a word for I can't disclose what we're doing, we're using state and federal water and endangered species laws and other environmental regulation enforcement, and we're hiring big law. Respected former EPA lawyers have joined us in this fight. We're hiring a team of experienced litigators, and we're launching a $5 million litigation capital campaign this month. We'll see how the left reacts to that. Second, in order to combat the dramatic rise in misinformation, the rampant social media censorship that Seth has already talked about, in order to target the demographic, the only demographic that Republicans failed to win this November, who were largely credited with ensuring the red tsunami never reached our shores, we had to double down. We're doubling down. We're launching 5 years for every campus plan, ensuring that Students for Life by 2028 has a presence at every four-year college campus in America, all 2,675. Next school year, we will begin spending $3.1 million in 9 key states that we know will be also crucial in 2024. You might recognize these states: Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, Minnesota, New Hampshire. Starting groups at 560 campuses. We've never done this before. Here in Florida, it means we have to raise $540,800 for next school year so we can hire at least 3 additional team members to serve alongside Andy. Andy needs help. Raise your hand, Andy. Engaging in this $500,000 campaign will ensure we get presences at all 128 four-year campuses next year. I know launching, and I had to tell myself this, I know launching these 2 massive campaigns are going to require our team to raise, I've been adding it up in my head, $8 million, more in funds than we already have scheduled to spend, on top of our current team, on top of our current programs. I know it sounds like a massive challenge, just like how seeing Roe versus Wade reversed once seemed like an insurmountable challenge. But I can't ignore the moment that we're in. The battlefield is larger than it's ever been before. The skirmishes that we fight are vicious, especially on our college campuses. And the weapons, the new weapons, the counterattacks that are being hurled at this generation and our movement come every single day. As a student of history, I know there were small, courageous decisions that every justice movement, every just war that were needed to determine the fate of that mission or that war. There's small actions that individuals took. Courageous actions, courageous decisions. It's usually a choice when you look back at history. It's a choice by one or two to lean back or fall forward, to take an incredible personal risk or play it safe, to play nice with those in power, or to create the social tension needed to demand real change. I often think about the moment, the heart-wrenching moment, where the decision where Mother Till decided not to close the casket of her baby boy Emmett after he was tortured and drowned for supposedly whistling to a white woman in northern Mississippi. I think about that one decision that grieving mother made, which Rosa Parks said she had on her mind the day she refused to give up her seat in Montgomery, which led then 4 students with no connections and no political expertise in Greensboro to sit at a whites-only lunch counter on a Sunday afternoon, which then inspired thousands. Just one decision by one grieving mother. So I think the decision we have before us tonight is, do we fall back? Do we say, oh, it's too hard, there's somewhat of a recession, there's inflation, we have all of these political obstacles against us? Do we hide in our bunkers? Or do we rush into the battlefield, knowing that there is not really a playbook for where we're going? Some in this audience have already rushed there. Caitlin Rook, our Students for Life Action Montana captain, who started Students for Life group in her high school, had a bit of legal trouble, we got it fixed. Then she said, that was easy, now I'm going to run for state office. This year was the youngest candidate in America running for state office and almost won to an 18-year veteran, only lost by 300 votes, which means she's got him next time. Maddie Schulte, many of you know Maddie Schulte. Many of you don't know Maddie came to our summit after being dragged, I think, by her diocese in St. Paul to the March for Life, committed herself to the pro-life movement, joined us in high school, also had a little bit of trouble at her high school. Notice a theme here. Went to college, was so excellent, we decided, we have to hire you now. I can't risk anybody else ever having you, who now leads our entire development team at Students for Life. Angelique Clark, the girl with the painted dress. Angelique also had trouble in her high school in Las Vegas. We had to sue her school to allow her group to get started, who then has now launched a new pro-life organization, Life Dress, which is one of our incubated organizations this year, has gone to Africa, has gone to Central America, educating young people, using art, changing hearts and minds. And there's so many more that aren't even here tonight. A little girl, Juanita, that I met from Toledo, Ohio, came with her diocese to the National Pro-Life Summit just a few weeks ago, who came up to me with a handwritten letter to President Biden and handed me a 40 Days for Life pen and asked, would you be the 137th signer to my petition? I've written a letter to President Biden asking why he won't save babies. To the 20-year-old girl, I never got her name because I thought she was going to hit me, found out she wasn't. To the 20-year-old girl, she was an atheist who came up barreling at me at the March for Life, scared my bodyguards, and then said, I'm here, I saw one of your videos on social media, I'm a proud atheist, I'm a liberal, I'm a Democrat, but what you said made sense, so I even came with this church group from Charlottesville all the way up here to be here at the March for Life. The kids were like, atheists for not very long. To my friend Megan, who was one of the very first students I had the honor to work with in Sacramento, who because of her courage to start her group on her campus, Sac State, got to meet a girl the first day she was out there with our staff. Jessica, who had just had her abortion. Jessica, who after starting a friendship with her, came back to her when she was pregnant again. And after everyone told her to have the abortion, even her pastor, Megan said, Jessica, you don't have to do this. Megan, who's godmother to baby Stefan. You see, there's an entire army. I get very self-conscious when I get accolades or you stand up to applaud me because you're not applauding me. There's an entire army, the pro-life generation, these heroes that you support at Students for Life and Students for Life Action. You've created them. You've launched them. And I want you to know they are 100% all in. They are all in to finish what our heroes in the original, we call them the OG, pro-life gen, started. Leaders like Jack Wilkie, Joe Schuyler, my hero Phyllis Schlafly. The work that they started before our generation was even conceived, they're all in to see abortion made unthinkable, illegal, and abolished throughout our land. I hope you know that. And I know the opposition that we're up against can feel overwhelming at times. I certainly feel it myself. But thinking about the tens of thousands of babies who have been born already, do you know we were just blamed for a diaper shortage in Texas? Thinking about the tens of thousands of babies who will be born or have been born this year, just thinking about these precious human beings who were spared the slaughter and the violence, their mothers who were actually empowered to choose both. I have to say, I agree with General Eisenhower and his charge to the young men who were tasked with just holding the line at the Battle of the Bulge, just holding the line to ensure Hitler's army would suffer its final defeat. He wrote to them, "Men, the present situation is regarded as one of opportunity for us, not of disaster." Thank you.
As a Texas friend of mine would say, if that don't light your fire, then your wood is wet. Woo! Thank you, Kristan Hawkins. Every one of us has a role. And in this final time together during this gala, here in person in Naples, Florida, at St. John the Evangelist, on YouTube, on Facebook, wherever we're coming together, each of us have to discern what is the role that God has for me in this work for such a time as this. You've heard from a number of the Post-Roe generation about what they are doing. You've heard from Kristan. You've heard from inspiring speakers. You've walked by the tables, the various different initiatives back there. You've met people like Angelique Clark that Kristan was talking about, who, yes, painted my tie, lifedress.org, because she's using her gift of art to create statement pieces where we can make a statement with something we're wearing. I would never have thought of that, but the creativity, the innovation of the post-Roe generation is changing our culture. And the question is, what are we going to do to stand with and to stand for this generation? We have an opportunity tonight to invest into this bold vision that Kristan has cast for us. And I have a few housekeeping things to share before we dive into the response to this. It'll just take our last few minutes together. But first, Kristan was talking about how important it is. And Students for Life has always recognized the urgency of working with local pregnancy centers. There is no more important frontline work in the pro-life movement than walking with mothers in the situation of unexpected pregnancy, to be a voice for them and to help protect both them and their children. That's why Students for Life launched the Standing With You initiative, to provide more pregnant and parenting support and to demonstrate this ongoing commitment. She already talked about community pregnancy clinics right here in the Naples community, but tonight 5% of all net proceeds from this event will be donated to CPCI's facilities here in Naples, an organization that just in the last year saw 1,626 babies saved from abortion. So 1,470 clients provided with material assistance and 8,432 personal follow-ups with clients, thanks to Scott and the team at Community Pregnancy Clinics. And these are the kinds of efforts around the country that are making a life-saving difference. Kristan laid out a lot. And in your envelope, the folder in the middle of your table, I'd ask somebody to grab it, and in there are actually 3 clipped together bundles of cards. This is going to seem a bit complex. We're going to walk through it step by step because there's several different things that you can weigh and consider about what you feel you are called to do. So the card with the dark purple, give everybody one of those, the light purple, and then also with the red. So just make sure those get passed around. And please don't fill anything out until I walk you through each card very briefly so that we know what exactly that we are doing. The first card I want you to put in front of you is the dark purple that says, "Here is my most generous one-time gift." This is for Students for Life of America, the 501c3 organization, so tax deductible to the fullest extent allowed by the Internal Revenue Service. As Kristan talked about, Students for Life has an audacious 5-year plan. And if we hadn't seen some of her other audacious claims come true, like, oh, the overturn of Roe versus Wade, we might scratch our heads and say, can she really pull this off? Can she and her team? Students for Life's already been in this battle on college campuses. And when we look at the most recent elections in November 2022, voters under age 30 were voting Democrat by 28 points, voting for those who advocate for abortion. There are a lot of hearts, there are a lot of minds that need to be reached and changed. And that's why Students for Life is committed to growing their campus outreach to every single 4-year college across the United States within the next 5 years. Right now, they're on 20% of 4-year college campuses. No other pro-life organization is more poised to be able to tap into the generation being targeted by the abortion industry. Students for Life is committed to not only reaching these campuses, but to spark engagement, establishing Students for Life affiliates on every 4-year college within the next 5 years. The target is 2,679 colleges. 772 of those are public schools. 1,907 are private schools. This is what Students for Life does best: train, equip, and mobilize the pro-life generation. And to help with this work for the 501c3 Students for Life of America, a generous matching challenge has been put forward for tonight of $250,000. That means every single one-time gift you make here this evening will be doubled, dollar for dollar, up to $250,000. If you say, I want to make a $5,000 gift to help spread to more campuses, that will be doubled instantly to $10,000. A $20,000 gift will be $40,000. And I'm not going to do any other numbers because doing math live, I could really mess things up. But every one-time gift will be doubled up to $250,000. So if you want to make a gift tonight, you feel led to make a gift of $250,000, that will be doubled. Where else can you put an investment of $250,000 and have it doubled instantly in our current economic situation? And not only will the money be doubled, the life-saving impact will be doubled because of the amazing work of Students for Life of America. So on the card that you have, what I'm going to ask you to do is first fill in your name, address, city, state, zip, that information. Regardless of what you feel led to invest tonight, put that information in so Students for Life can keep you abreast of their progress towards this ambitious 5-year plan. And then in a moment, we're going to pray over this decision, but then we're going to look at those different numbers and we're going to think through what is it that God is asking from each of us. Now, the people who are watching us on the live stream, they're saying, well, I don't have a card. Well, that's right. In the YouTube post where you're watching this or where the Facebook Live is going on, below that there is a link. Open that link in a new tab in your browser, and you will see a page that has all of the same information as the cards we're filling out here in Naples, Florida. So fill in your information, and then let's go to the Lord in prayer and ask Him to lead our hearts on the one-time gift He's asking us to make, keeping in the back of our minds that will be doubled up to $250,000. Let's go before the Lord and ask Him to guide our hearts. Heavenly Father, we thank You for bringing us together tonight. We thank You for filling us with hope, for helping us to see that the overturning of Roe, what an amazing victory that You accomplished, and so many, over so many decades, who have invested their prayers, their energies, their dollars. But dear Lord, we recognize that we have marching orders to move forward. and that the most important group that we can mobilize is the post-Roe generation, the pro-life generation, young adults whose peers are being targeted by the abortion industry and who have the opportunity to change hearts and minds and save lives like no one else. Dear Lord, help us to know how we can help empower these young people, how we can invest our time and talent to help this effort, but also our treasure so that they can continue to expand this effort until that day when abortion is not only illegal, but it's unthinkable. And we are not only in a post-Roe America, Lord, we look forward to the day when we are in a post-abortion America. Dear Lord, we know with you all things are possible, and we trust you and ask you to guide our hearts on what you would ask us to give, and to have courage as we say yes to the call that you have given us, and to be thankful for the opportunity to have the money doubled so that we can make double the impact. Lord, we thank you, and we ask all of these things in the name of your Son, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. So go ahead and check the amount of your one-time gift, whatever that is. If you say, gee, David, I can't give $100,000 tonight, that's okay. There is room for other, and you can write in the number. Every gift is appreciated, no matter how small and no matter how big. So fill that out, and then if you wish to make a check, you can write that out to Students for Life of America, or they take cash, that still works. Or if you'd like to use your credit card, that's what my wife Margaret and I are going to use our credit card to make our gift. Finish filling that out. I'll give you about 60 seconds to do that, and then we have 2 more little steps we will take to finish out our time before we close our event. Nice to meet you. Oh, thank you. Okay, I've had a couple questions come up. So, first of all, as you finish your dark purple card, you can either hold on to that or they can pass the envelope around and you can drop it in. I've had questions about, wait, explain to me the other 2 cards, and we did, the deacon here at St. John the Evangelist point out there is a typo on the reddish card. I will get to that one next after we go through the light purple, okay? So bear with us 1 second. There's a lot, and the IRS for some reason likes to complicate things. I know you're shocked, so that's why we have to be very careful about how we walk through this. Okay, I mentioned the $250,000 matching challenge. That is good for all the one-time gifts that you just made. It's also good for the monthly pledges to Students for Life of America. That's the 501c3 nonprofit tax-exempt organization. So your one-time gift is doubled. Your monthly pledge will be annualized. So if you made a $100 monthly pledge, that would be multiplied by 12. That's $1,200. That will be doubled to $2,400. Does that make sense? So your monthly pledge on the light purple card to Students for Life of America will also count towards the matching challenge. So I want to give you about 30 seconds to look over that. Now, if you already filled in your one-time gift card, you don't need to, other than your name, fill in your contact information again. But the reason I would encourage you to prayerfully consider this is the one-time gifts at an event like this are a huge shot in the arm. But the monthly pledges help Kristan and her team to mobilize the post-Roe generation 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months from now. And it helps them to build a budget knowing what is coming in for the 501c3 tax-exempt organization. So let's just say a quick prayer, ask the Lord to lead our hearts on this decision, and then we have one final thing when I explain the red card and I tell you about the typo. Thank you, Deacon, for telling me about that. Heavenly Father, please stir our hearts and help us to know ways that we can stand with the Post-Roe generation and the women and the children that they serve and that they advocate on behalf of. Dear Lord, help us to know the pledge of ongoing support you would ask us to make into this work. And we are so thankful for this matching challenge that will enable the annualized amount of our monthly pledges to be doubled. And we can't wait to see what amazing things you are going to do in this coming year through the work of Students for Life. Thank you for bringing us here. Thank you for inviting us to this moment. And thank you for giving us this chance to be a part of joining you in this most important mission. We give you the praise, the glory, and we thank you for all these things in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. All right, so on that card, if you didn't fill in your information, you can write it in on this one. If you did, just write your name. Then check the amount of your monthly pledge. Remember, that will be doubled, the annualized amount. And then if you want to mail your pledge, check that if you'd rather use a credit card. I'll give you about 30 seconds to fill that in, and then I'll explain the typo on the red card. And for those watching on the live stream right now, when you click the link, you can make your monthly pledge. That will also be doubled, dollar for dollar, up to the $250,000 matching challenge. Got about 30 seconds, and then we have one last thing to do before we close out. All right, hold on to those cards. Now you've got the dark purple, the light purple. Now, I want you to look at the bottom of your reddish card. Those in the room, those online, don't have to worry about this. There is a typo. The typo is down at the bottom that says, the very little tiny small print where it says Students for Life of America is a 501c4. That is incorrect. Up above, you'll see it says Students for Life Action. That is the 501c4 organization. The IRS requires if you're going to get involved in public policy advocacy, you have to have a separate organization. So Students for Life set up Students for Life Action as a 501c4, a critical organization, but it's not a tax-exempt organization. So the matching challenge does not apply here, but here's why this is so important. Kristan talked about the fight to stop chemical abortion. This is the single greatest looming threat that we pro-lifers face right now. Some states like California, 7 out of 10 abortions are being delivered by these dangerous pills. States like Texas, where abortion was overall prohibited, abortion pills are being sent in from out of state via mail order. Abortions are happening by the droves by these chemical abortion pills. Students for Life has been, since the beginning, on the front lines of stopping the distribution and the expansion of these chemical abortions. Since now, more than 28 women have died from chemical abortion pills, millions of preborn children. And as Kristan talked about just this past week, Students for Life led the drive through Students for Life Action in Wyoming to get the first measure to ban chemical abortion. And this was the first major pro-life piece of legislation signed into law anywhere in America this year. Students for Life needs to advance more of this work to fight chemical abortion. So your gift to Students for Life Action will help them expand this fight and win this fight. It's not tax deductible, but it's critical work, and I hope you will consider making a one-time gift, or on the other side, a monthly pledge, or both, to Students for Life Action, as well as to Students for Life of America. Again, just to clarify, the typo at the bottom, Students for Life of America is a 501c3. Students for Life Action is a 501c4 by IRS regulations. Does that all make sense? All right, let's pray one final time over this. Let's then respond to the Students for Life Action, and then we will wrap our event and have a wonderful evening, finishing our time with other friends and then heading home. Heavenly Father, we love you, and we are so thankful for the opportunity to join you in this work. Help us to not dismay, to not be fearful in the midst of the darkness of the culture, but instead to be determined to bring light, to pierce through that darkness, to save more lives, to change more hearts and minds, and particularly to stop this horrific expansion of chemical abortion. Thank you for Students for Life for taking the lead on this and other legislative and policy initiatives, and please bless them in their efforts and help us to discern ways that we can invest our gifts, our one-time gifts, our monthly pledges to Students for Life Action to help expand this work and to help it be more successful. Dear Lord, in all of this, it's not about us. It's not about Kristan. It's not about Students for Life of America or Students for Life Action. We know this fight is really about you, and it's all about souls. Dear Lord, help us to win these fights for souls on your behalf. Help us to be as generous as we possibly can. We ask this in your Son's most precious name, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. All right, so on that card, again, if you already filled one out, you don't need to write anything but your name so they can connect the dots. If you haven't filled it in, check your one-time gift and flip it over. Check your ongoing monthly pledge. When you are done with all three of those cards, if you could take that envelope that was going around, drop those cards back in. Those will be collected to keep your information secure. For those who are doing this online, make your gifts online. Very easy to submit. And by doing this, you are making a profound impact. I want to thank all the speakers tonight. I want to thank Kristan Hawkins. I want to thank the staff and board of Students for Life of America. And I want to thank you for being a voice for the voiceless. And if you wish, on the tables, feel free to take the bouquets home with you. You have to fight over it if several people at the table want it. But drive safely, have a wonderful evening, and know that we will press forward in this fight until America is not merely post-Roe, but truly is post-abortion. God bless you, and have a wonderful evening.